The Calm Lotus, a tale of Buddha's wisdom. Once upon a time, in the serene and lush forests of India, there lived a wise and enlightened man named Siddhartha Gautama, who came to be known as Buddha. His teachings and wisdom had a profound impact on all who sought his guidance. This story is about a young man named Ananda, who was tormented by stress and anger, and how his life was transformed by Buddha's profound teachings. Ananda was a hard-working and diligent man who lived in a small village near the forest where Buddha often meditated. Despite his best efforts, Ananda's life was filled with turmoil. He struggled to find peace, and his mind was always clouded with anger and frustration. His family and friends were concerned about him, and they often suggested he seek Buddha's counsel. One day, after a particularly stressful week, Ananda decided to visit Buddha. As he walked through the forest, he could feel the cool breeze and hear the gentle rustling of leaves. The serene environment started to calm his agitated mind. After a long walk, he reached the clearing where Buddha was sitting under a large Bodhi tree, surrounded by his disciples. Buddha noticed Ananda's troubled expression and beckoned him to sit down. "What troubles you, my child?" Buddha asked in a gentle voice. Ananda poured out his heart, speaking of his constant stress, anger, and inability to find peace. Buddha listened patiently, his calm presence soothing Ananda's troubled soul. After Ananda finished speaking, Buddha smiled and said, "I see that you carry a heavy burden. Let me tell you a story that may help you understand your troubles better." Ananda nodded, eager to hear Buddha's wisdom. The story of the angry man and the lotus pond. Buddha began his story. Once, there was a man named Kavi who lived in a village similar to yours. Kavi was known for his quick temper and harsh words. He would often lash out at his family and friends, driving them away with his anger. One day, he decided to visit a wise sage who lived in a forest, hoping to find a solution to his problems. The sage, who was renowned for his wisdom, lived near a beautiful lotus pond. When Kavi arrived, he saw the sage sitting by the pond, meditating. The sage invited Kavi to sit beside him and asked, "What brings you here, my child?" Kavi explained his problem, much like you did, Ananda. The sage listened carefully and then said, "Look at this lotus pond. It is serene and calm, despite the fact that it is surrounded by mud and dirt. The lotus flowers rise above the mud, untouched by its impurity. Your mind is like this pond. It can be calm and peaceful, regardless of the chaos around you." Kavi was puzzled. "But how do I achieve this peace?" he asked. The sage handed Kavi a lotus flower and said, "Hold this flower and close your eyes. Focus on the beauty and purity of the lotus. Let go of your anger and frustration, and allow yourself to be as serene as this flower." Kavi followed the sage's instructions. As he focused on the lotus, he felt a wave of calm wash over him. His anger began to dissipate, and he felt a sense of peace he had never experienced before. The sage then said, "Remember, anger and stress are like the mud. They can cloud your mind, but they cannot touch the true essence of who you are. You have the power to rise above them, just like the lotus rises above the mud." Kavi thanked the sage and returned to his village. He practiced focusing on the lotus flower whenever he felt anger rising within him. Over time, he became calmer and more peaceful, and his relationships with his family and friends improved. Ananda listened intently to Buddha's story. He could feel a shift within himself as he pondered the wisdom of the lotus flower. Buddha then said, "Ananda, you must find your own lotus. Whenever you feel anger or stress, focus on something that brings you peace and serenity. Remember, you have the power to rise above the mud of your troubles." Ananda bowed deeply to Buddha, feeling a sense of gratitude and hope. He left the clearing with a lighter heart, determined to find his own lotus. In the following days, Ananda practiced what Buddha had taught him. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by stress or anger, he would find a quiet place and focus on a beautiful flower, imagining it as a lotus rising above the mud. He found that this simple practice helped him calm his mind and let go of his negative emotions. Over time, Ananda's life began to change. He became more patient and understanding, and his relationships with his family and friends improved. The villagers noticed the change in him and began to seek his advice on how to deal with their own troubles. Ananda shared Buddha's story of the lotus pond with them, and soon the entire village began to practice this meditation. The village became known as the Village of Lotuses, where the teachings of Buddha brought peace and harmony to everyone. People from neighboring villages would come to learn the practice of focusing on the lotus, and the wisdom of Buddha spread far and wide. One day, Ananda returned to the forest to thank Buddha for his guidance. He found Buddha meditating under the Bodhi tree, surrounded by his disciples. Ananda bowed deeply and said, "Buddha, your teachings have transformed my life and the lives of everyone in my village. We have all found our lotuses and we are forever grateful." Buddha smiled and replied, "The true lotus lies within each of you. By finding your inner peace and rising above the mud of your troubles, you have discovered the essence of my teachings. Continue to share this wisdom with others, and you will help create a world of peace and harmony." Ananda returned to his village, filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He continued to practice and teach the wisdom of the lotus flower, and his village thrived in peace and prosperity. The story of the lotus pond became a cherished tale, passed down through generations, reminding everyone of the power of inner peace and the ability to rise above life's challenges. And so, the legacy of Buddha's teachings lived on, inspiring countless people to find their own lotuses and create a world filled with compassion, understanding, and serenity. This story reminds us that, like the lotus flower, we have the power to rise above our troubles and find inner peace. By focusing on the beauty and serenity within us, we can transform our lives and the lives of those around us, creating a world filled with harmony and love. Thanks for watching video.